beating the bushes. He's making this, and there's no real danger of that. But he starts raising the scare in the press, using his agents to do this. And he calls for a holy alliance, which is a historic term that's been used in Europe between the three emperors. Now he wants an alliance, and a Bund again, but he really wants it to be formal. And of course, Thiers is still pushing for the Russian alliance, but now he has a little help from England. And yet another new face comes. I don't want to bore you with all these new faces, but they're fascinating people. Decazes suddenly becomes prime minister. He's replaced by Charles de Rémusat, famous name in France. This picture kind of depicts him as I see him. He was the new foreign minister. He comes from an old line. His father had been a chamberlain to the first Napoleon. So he's accustomed to being in high circles. Managed to survive after that. His mother was really an accomplished writer, a very, at that time, well-known writer, and so was he. He had been Minister of the Interior, again, a domestic leader. He wrote a 2-volume biography of Pierre Abelard. I don't know how you write 2 volumes about Pierre Abelard, but he did. Famous literary figure, but he was a highly respected literary guy who had a political career. He becomes the foreign minister for a while. He interjects himself, just in time. Because what he helped engender with the support of Thiers, of course, was what the diplomatic term rapprochement, coming together. Rapprochement between England and France over, this is not a good map, over North Africa and the Near East. And it's the Near East we consider, the focus now. Iraq, it's now Iraq, Afghanistan, that part of the world. Russia, at that time, saw, we use the term manifest destiny in the United States, the idea that the United States is going to move west. Russia saw their manifest destiny moving that direction. Of course, so did England. And so what happens here is they explain, because of another character who's introduced that becomes important to the rest of these lectures, they work on working out a neutral zone, a buffer between the British interest and the Russian interest. The reason I mention that is to introduce probably the most fascinating person in this whole 8 years in diplomacy. His name is Peter Shuvalov. When you write a doctoral dissertation, you always have to find something that's different. I couldn't find anything different than we didn't already know, except this guy. He was really he was the ultimate diplomatist. Diplomats are diplomats. We can be diplomatic, and I can say, oh, how nice you look today, and you can say, oh, you look very good too, and everything's wonderful, and would you like a cocktail? A diplomatist is somebody who knows how to play the game. A diplomatist is a diplomat with an agenda. I guess that's the best way to say it. He was known as the ultimate diplomatist in his time. And he was. He really plays a key role, aside, not with, but against, or, well, I can't say against, alongside LaFleur in 1875, next week. But in this position, he began a very straightforward and positive influence here. This will sound familiar. The Anglo-Russian issues over the Central Asia, over Afghanistan, Iraq, that part of the world, what we call that now, had reached its head because there was always revolution going on over there. I mean, it's no different than today. It is a country that was ruled by the Ottoman Empire from Constantinople, but it was really constantly in turmoil. And there had been, of course, Russian troops there. One of the local rulers was the Khan of Khiva. Khanate of Khiva was his country, a small province. They had taken some Russian prisoners. Unlike today, where people take prisoners and hold them. British immediately were very upset. They're talking about going to war, because of the prisoners being held. Shuvalov ultimately, and his key role in this was to work. At this point, he was the ambassador of Russia to England. He works out an accord between England and Russia to set up this buffer zone in this hot area. He did a great job with it. I mean, he had the influence to do it. He was a great diplomat. But that was his first positive role. He has other positive roles, but that's what he did here. The thing that's fascinating about Shuvalov was he was a very handsome guy. And he also had a very beautiful wife. So he was welcomed in all the cocktail parties and soirees that diplomats went to. And it was no secret that that was his skill. He ended up on the cover, I'll show you next week, of Vanity Fair magazine at that point. On the cover, that's like making the cover of Vanity Fair today, except it wasn't once a month, it was once a quarter. He was a real celeb. And he would boast in his writings that he usually learned more about what was going on in England from talking to the Prime Minister's wife, when he was flirting with his wife, than he did from the Prime Minister.